making improvement inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وصحبه ومن والاه. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant shifa, healing to all of those who are ill, suffering, in pain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them and all of us relief. May Allah strengthen them and all of us with faith and certitude in our qulub. May Allah grant them and all of us satisfaction with His qada subhanahu wa ta'ala. إنه لطيف لما يشاء إنه على كل شيء قدير. A wonderful ayah of Allah Azza wa Jal that I always love to hear. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Indeed, the awliya of Allah, they shall not fear and they shall not grieve. In this dunya, a death in the barzakh and the beyond. لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. Indeed, this is what all the seekers need to excel, to reach, to be a wali min awliya illah, in the khas meaning, not in the am general meaning. In the general meaning, alhamdulillah, everyone who says La ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, and believes in the 5 pillars of Islam and the 6 pillars of Iman, and strives, that's a wali min awliya illah in the general sense, بالمعنى العام, ليس بالمعنى الخاص, not in the specific special meaning. Because alhamdulillah, we are Muslims, we say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. You all agree that I am not, we're not at the same level as, for example, Al-Imam Shafi'i, or Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, or Al-Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal, or Malik rahimahullah ta'ala, or Sufyan al-Thawri, or Ibn Uyayna, or Sayyida Aisha, or Sayyida Fatima. Are we the same level? If you think you are, then come see me afterwards. The concept of wilaya khassa, special type of wilaya. That's what we seek, and this is what is intended. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. To be that special wali of Allah Azza wa Jal, to the extent that in this dunya, despite the vicissitudes and the hardships and the challenges of this dunya and the calamities of this dunya, people who are afraid and insecure and restless and agitated, most are like that. This wali, that kind of wali is not. That kind of wali is not. Al-wali wilayatan khassa. Because that type of wali has always Allah in his qalb, or her qalb. Not intellectually, again, that which we try to strive for experientially and emotionally. Tawheedun wujdani. Ala tarawun, that when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the cave with the wali, who was he? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And then the pursuers finally reached them and found their traces, and they got to the cave. And yet, when everything seemed to have been lost, and that's it, it's over, look at the super wali and the super nabi. Nabiyul awliya wa waliyul anbiya sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam wa sayyidul awwalin wal akhirin. The ocean of tawheed in his qalb, الذي أذاقه الله سبحانه وتعالى لذة توحيده. The one whom Allah Azza wa Jal granted in his heart the sweetness of his tawheed subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says to Abu Bakr, in that very, very difficult and challenging moment, لا تحزن إن الله معنا. That ocean of peace. لا تحزن, do not grieve. Allah is with us. Many times we don't understand that well. With us, of course Allah is in control of everything. But that statement by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, with us, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam always had Allah with him, meaning in his qalb, always. Always. Not only that Allah is on our side. No, Allah is with me always. He has been with me. And the one who is like that shall never grieve. And to the degree we miss that ma'iyyah, that state of being with Allah Azza wa Jal, to the degree we miss it in our qulub, to the degree we shall grieve and be insecure. ألا إن أولياء الله لا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون. اللهم اجعلنا منهم. Ya Allah, help us reach that maqam of that wilayah of you, Ya Rabb. And let the last breath, when you take us from this dunya to join ultimately the reality of the hereafter, let us please be, Ya Rabbi, grant us that maqam of being that wali, especially at that moment. Ya Arhamar Rahimin. And finally, a beautiful dua from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to help our qulub be in that state of awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal, in that state of khushu' always with Allah Azza wa Jal. Al-Imam Ibn Majah relates and others that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam said, he taught us this dua: Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-arba'. Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-arba'. Which means, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from four things. Number one, min ilmin la yanfa'. Min ilmin la yanfa'. From knowledge, I seek refuge in you from knowledge that is not beneficial. See? Not all information is useful. Not all knowledge is useful. There is junk food and there is junk knowledge. Junk knowledge is any knowledge, however, some of us might evaluate it. If it does not help me in the pursuit of the purpose for which I was created, directly or indirectly, it helps me in that, then it is not useful. So I seek refuge, Ya Allah, in you from that desire in me sometimes to pursue knowledge, yet you know it is not good for me and I think it is good for me and useful for me. Knowledge. So if it is about knowledge, what about wealth and job and relationships and kada that are not nafi'ah? ذلك أولى. ذلك أولى. إن كان العلم منه غير نافع ونستعيذ بالله من ذلك، فالاستعاذة بالله من غير العلم مثل المال والدنيا وكذا التي لا تنفع هو أولى. So it is more appropriate even to seek refuge in Allah from other than knowledge that is not beneficial. من علم لا ينفع. Second, ومن قلب لا يخشع. ومن قلب لا يخشع. ومن قلب لا يخشع. And from a heart. And from a heart. And from a heart that does not set into the condition of khushu'. Khushu', that awareness with reverence of Allah Azza wa Jal. That my limbs, nay, my heart first is in quietude and serenity and silence before my limbs in my relationship to Allah Azza wa Jal, in my awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal. And many of us, our qulub are restless, agitated, stirred up, restless, most of the time, afraid, insecure, arrogant, deluded, boastful, forgetful, distracted, All those ahwal are anti-khushu' hal. So I seek refuge in you, Ya Allah, from such a qalb. وَمِن قَلْبٍ لَا يَخْشَعْ. Thirdly, وَمِن نَفْسٍ لَا تَشْبَعْ. وَمِن نَفْسٍ لَا تَشْبَعْ. And I seek refuge in you from a nafs, a self that is never satiated, that never has enough. More, 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 more. Not qanu'a. In all matters of concern or of no concern in this world. Wealth, power, things that are not beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, our nufus want more of them, more and more and more. And that's a state of agitation. I seek refuge in you, Ya Allah, from such a nafs that has never enough. And finally, وَمِن دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعْ. وَمِن دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعْ. وَمِن دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعْ. And that means that I seek refuge in you from dua, from a supplication, from a prayer. Supplication that is not heard. Does not Allah hear everything? Of course He does. What does this mean? Allah does not care about that dua. As if it was not said. How come? Some dua is like that? It seems yes. Some dua is just like that. Allah does not care about some of our dua, depending on which heart it comes from, with which intention it comes. Is that heart aware and conscious and forward in its spiritual momentum towards Allah, or is it reckless and careless and not focused at all? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also said, "Ud'u Allah wa antum muqinuna bil ijabah wa a'lamu anna Allah la yastajibu du'a qalbin ghafil." Implore Allah and be sure that Allah hears and responds, and make sure to know that Allah does not hear, does not respond to a dua that comes from a heart that is distracted. فَنَعُوذُ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ دُعَاءٍ لَا يُسْمَعْ. We conclude by saying it all together. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الأربع. من علم لا ينفع ومن قلب لا يخشع ومن نفس لا تشبع ومن دعاء لا يسمع. And I would like you, please, if possible, when you go and you leave, take a homework with you, a spiritual homework with you. Try to connect these four together. These four from 1 to 4, connect them together. See how they're connecting this beautiful dua. There's a beautiful connection between them. And we have, if some of you recall, a few months ago, I think I've shared this with you, and I told you either here or somewhere, I don't know, I told you about the link between them. I know most have forgotten it. That's why knowledge, it's good to be repeated from time to time. It helps us. Now, for most of you, maybe you've never heard it, so you still have that homework. Connect them together. See why this order. Ilm, qalb, nafs, and dua, one after the other. There's a beautiful, subtle, spiritual significance to that. If Allah Azza wa Jal help us see that. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.